everyone. Today I'm going to show you quickly how to change out the tank on a toilet. As you can see here, we've got a large crack that popped up on our tank. Luckily we caught it before too much water leaked out and we were able to shut the water off and drain the tank to avoid any damage. This is actually the infamous Vortens 3464 tank. I believe there's actually a class action lawsuit on these tanks because this cracking problem happened so frequently. So if you have a similar Vortens tank, I'll put a link in the description of the video with the Amazon tank that I'm gonna replace mine with. It's not a perfect like for like, but it will work if you need a cheap and easy option to fix your cracked tank. And then of course, if you've got any other brand toilet that you're gonna do this on, as long as you're replacing it with a like for like tank, this is gonna be the exact same process for that as well. The first thing we'll do before we remove this tank is just use a towel or a sponge to absorb all the remaining water that's down in there that you weren't able to drain out. Okay, I got all the water out of the tank and now we're ready to remove it. Tools that we're gonna need for this. So we're gonna have to remove the water line off the tank. Typically you can do this by hand, but if it is on there pretty tight, you might need to use a pair of pliers to get that off. And then also to remove the bolts, you're either gonna use a deep set 1/2-inch socket, or if you don't have one of these, you can always just use a regular 1/2-inch wrench. It'll take you a little longer, but it can do the job. First step is to remove the water line off the tank. Your water valve should be turned off by now, but if it's not, just go ahead and turn it off. And then all we're gonna do is reach in here and loosen up this valve here. You will get a little bit of water from the line spill out, so I just got some paper towels down here to catch some of that mess as it comes out. Mine's not too tight, so I'm able to do it by hand. If yours is on there pretty tight, you might have to get a pair of pliers to get it off. Once that's off, I can just kind of move it out of the way and leave it there because we'll reconnect that to our new tank when we get it installed. The next step is going to be to remove the bolts that are holding the tank on. So we'll look it down here even further underneath. You've got these 1/2-inch nuts down here, and we're going to take our socket and just pull those nuts off of the bolt. All right, we'll come around to the other side and do the bolt on the other side as well. There'll also be some washers on there. They might get stuck on there just from the corrosion and gunk kind of building up in there over the years. If you need to use like a flathead screwdriver or something to pop those off, you can. With the mounting bolts off and the water line removed, we should now be able to just pick up this tank and pull it up straight up off the toilet. Here's a ProFlow tank that I got to replace my Vortens tank. Like I mentioned before, it's not an OEM replacement, but it will work if you're just needing a quick and easy solution to fix that Vortens tank crack. I'll put the link in the description of the video, so if you need to know exactly which one I got, you can go and check it out there. The other good thing about this tank is that it does come pre-assembled with all the flushing hardware in there. So it's really just a matter of getting it mounted onto your toilet and bolted up and you're ready to go. We got to pull it out of the box now. You can see what all comes here. So you've got some assembly instructions, and then here's all your hardware, which I'll open up and go through individually to show you in a second. And then like I mentioned before, all of the flushing components come pre-installed, so that's already all done for you. Here's all the hardware that came with the tank that you'll need to reinstall it. So you've got your mounting bolts like we had before, just bolts with some rubber washers and then metal washers. And then you've got your water connection fitting here for when you hook up your water supply to the new tank. And you've got your main gasket here. So I'll show you how this goes on the bottom of the tank, and then it'll just sit here when you put it down to keep the water going into the toilet and not leaking out. One other thing to note, if you're doing this Vortens one, I am gonna leave my shims that were here from the previous tank. I'm gonna leave that on when I install this new one. The first thing we'll do is come to the bottom of the tank and put our gasket on. As you can see, it's gonna have the tapered in the bottom, and then this profile that's cut out on the inside is gonna go over this plastic fitting down here. So just not very hard, but just wanna make sure that you get it all the way on. there's no gaps, or you can't see any kind of gaps around the edge all the way around. Once our gasket's on, we'll go ahead and take the new tank and set it into place. Obviously, you're going to want to just take that gasket and center it onto the hole onto the of the toilet seat, and then what we'll do is we'll check that our mounting bolts, the holes in the tank, are lining up with the holes on the seat itself. Now that we've got the new tank set up on the toilet, we can just look and you can see the bolt holes and just make sure they line up so we can get those new bolts in there. Okay, when we're putting these mounting bolts through the tank holes here, we'll just have our rubber gasket on the bolt, and we will just lower it in and put it through, and then we'll do it for both sides, of course. Next, we'll come to the bottom side, and the hardware that I had only came with a metal washer and a nut. So I'm gonna go ahead and reuse the rubber washers that were on the bottom of the old tank, because I was always taught you should never have metal against ceramic. Okay, so to do this, we'll just stack the rubber and metal washer, and then I'll get my bolt ready to just hand tight to keep them on. And you'll probably have to hold it from inside on the top of the bowl as you slide the washers on, and then just, like I said, hand tight this nut on for now, and we'll come back later and I'll show you what needs to be done before we tighten these down fully. Same thing on the other side, rubber washer, metal washer, and then our nut. Okay, before we tighten everything down, we're just gonna make sure the tank is level. So I just grabbed a simple level here. You can see we're looking pretty good. Level wise, if you do need to adjust it, you can use these shims down here if you have them, or if you can just kind of manhandle the toilet, move it around a little bit, get it sitting in a better place before you go ahead and tighten it down all the way. When we are ready to tighten it down, we're going to use a screwdriver to hold the bolt in place up here, and then we're going to use a socket or your wrench to tighten the nut from underneath. We never want to turn the bolt with a screwdriver up top, because now you're risking damaging the bolt holes that go through it. So the key here is to just keep the bolt still and only turn the nut. The other thing you want to be careful of is not to over tighten. This is ceramic you're dealing with. If you were to really crank on it, you can easily crack it, and now you're back in the same problem that you had to begin with. So we'll just make sure it's firm and tight so that the tank isn't moving around, but there's no need to over tighten. All right, next we'll just reconnect the water line. I'm gonna use the fittings that were already on here from the last tank. It's the exact same, so no need to use the new stuff. Also, just remember these are plastic fittings. They're designed to be put on by hand. No need to use pliers to tighten these up or anything. And you just wanna get them firm. Don't need to over torque them. We don't wanna break or crack these plastic fittings. Okay, now we're ready to turn our water back on and just check for any leaks from the bolt holes or from the main gasket. So we'll go ahead and do that. And we can see we're filling up now. And I'll go ahead and flush it a few times just to make sure. If you do see any leaking around the mounting bolts from the bottom side, that means one of two things. Either the mounting bolts themselves aren't tight enough and you're not creating a seal with that gasket inside the tank, or you can actually have some sort of leak in that main gasket as well, and the way the water is trickling out, it's kind of trickling through those mounting holes and it makes it look like it's the mounting holes. So I would first try by just tightening the mounting holes some more and seeing if that solves your problem. If not, you might have to take the tank back off and resituate it onto the seat and just make sure that seal is on there good and centered so that you can eliminate that leak path. I cycled it a few times and I'm not seeing any leaks, so I'm going to go ahead and call this project a success. If you have any questions or issues, just drop them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. If this video helped you out, please consider subscribing to the channel or even giving the video a super thanks, and I will see you on the next project.